Good afternoon. My name is George Paris, and I wanted to make a quick video to brief you on something I discovered a while back, which I think is kind of interesting and worth sharing. I'm calling this the MHC connections, and if you don't recognize that abbreviation, I'll have the details for you shortly. Now, in what's called the family tree DNA database. That's one of the commercial systems that's out there. And I've used many search strategies to look for relatives. I've looked for all my local relatives. I have probably a couple of hundred second cousins because of a couple of great grandfathers that went wild out there. In any event, on a whim, I decided to look at those contacts with whom I share very little DNA sequences. Okay, I was surprised to discover there are not only a lot of significant number of people that share 10 centimeters or thereabouts of not centimeters, that's centimorgans, cm centimorgans with me. Many of these share exactly the same blocks, and that's what was shocking. It's not surprising that there's a lot of people that share 10 centimorgans, but when you have exactly the same blocks and people who are totally unrelated, that starts getting my attention. Now, this is not Y-DNA, this is not X-DNA, this is not mitochondrial DNA. This is just, it seemed to me to be random to start with, but I'll explain to you where that went. Now, we shared consistent segments on the short arm of chromosome 6. And it's like, that was a total mystery to me when I first started looking at that. Now, it turns out these are a couple of examples. I happen to be a Scotch-Irish male, and I blocked out all these people who I happen to pull up here. These are just some examples. The one on the left, I spent some time getting people who exactly the same niche. On the right, I literally put that together in about 5 minutes. The way I did that, I went to under the family finder part of the FTDNA system. I went and ordered everything by shared DNA, and I started from the least shared and I went to the 9 centimorgan or more. I went to the 9 centimorgan section, and in about 5 minutes, I found the people on the you have here on the right. Uh, you'll notice they're not all exactly the same, but they all certainly are in the same group. They're males or females. They have no using the comparison tool. There's no relationship between any of these people or me, and there are lots more. Out of the first 800, it takes a while to go through 800 people, but out of the first 800 people of these least related people in this least related database, I found 158 people, which is almost 20%, sharing this region and only this region. In other words, these were unique segments that literally almost 20% of the people out there shared. This 9 centimorgan total suggests that this region persists that more than 10 generations, that'd be 300 years, in people who survived adulthood and had children. That's the point. This segment of DNA helped generations of people survive through all those wounds, diseases, and plagues. All right. All the things that confound us growing up from childhood through puberty and into adulthood, these people all survive that. Now, what is so important about this segment of DNA? It did not take me too long. I have some background in genetics and biology. It did not take me too long to find that chromosome 6 is the location of the major histocompatibility complex. That's the MHC that I had earlier. Now, this complex encodes proteins that present antigens to T lymphocytes. The T lymphocytes are key to your immune response. And you'll notice that these uh, uh, codes are embedded in that short arm of chromosome 6. And I haven't matched up the sequences exactly, but as far as I could tell, we're talking about the same section here. Here's another representation. If you go on YouTube or just go on the internet anywhere, you'll find many representations of this. Now, it turns out, and for reasons I'm not going to try to explain, ftDNA flips the chromosome and puts a short arm on the left. Everybody else in the world puts it on the right. But we're talking about the short arm of chromosome 6, and we're looking at the same relative position here. Okay, now a little bit of background about the immune system. If you want a bunch of this, there's many websites that will go into this. The URL I've presented here is a good one to go to for a quick summary. This one is, I think the title of this, Antigen Presentation by Major Histocompatibility Complexes. And if you want to learn a lot more about it, go there and check this out with these people. Now, of course, I looked not only at my distant relatives, but I went back and looked at my close relatives. These are your second cousins, third cousins, fourth cousins, fifth cousins, etc. And I looked at my 200 closest relatives, and 13% of this have this 10 centimorgan segment completely covered if you include all the longer sequences. Of course, with near relatives, there are going to be whole segments here, whole chromosomes are covered. And so, but if you took all of those people together, not just that small segment, you have approximately 13% of my 200 closest relatives have that segment covered. Now, it turns out I believe I got mine from my mother's Scotch-Irish side of the family. Okay, now for those of you who don't quite follow how this works, I will divulge here a little bit. It takes 3 DNA or RNA codes to end up with one protein. In other words, you have these are the different possible combinations of 3, and they would lead you to a template strand. The template strand is used to make the RNA, and then the RNA is that's called transcription, and then translation. The RNA strand is translated into the proteins, amino acid by amino acid. There are many combinations of DNA that work and are inherently as good. Now, it turns out, of course, you could have many degenerate possibilities. You can make the same amino acid combination with many different combinations of the DNA and RNA. So it is not surprising that there would be many successful variations of this. Now, since all viable adults have functional immune systems, there must be many successful variations of the DNA code. This brings up an interesting point. There could be inheritance, and it could be convergent evolution. Now, it happens that I have access to my mother-in-law's DNA data. She happens to be a Russian woman who has many generations in Russia, Eastern Europe. And so I looked at her data. Now, she and I don't share any data at all. And as you would assume, and it turns out that she has the same situation. She has a family of people not related to her, not closely related to her at all, many of whom are not in Russia, who have who match her in the same sequence. You'll see here the combinations. It's a completely different code from mine, but it is very successful. Obviously, all these people are alive and well, as was my mother-in-law. So these men have no DNA shared with me. I don't share any sequence with them, whether it's this, we're talking about this segment or say in any other segment. Now this is summarizes the observations I've made. The conclusions are that we might be able to use these groups as another way to link up families or migration patterns or something like that. I'm just reporting this so that you can decide what to do with it if you want to look through your own and find out uh, how these people hook together. Another point that I would make, as I was going through all these hundreds of examples, I found other segments of DNA that seemed to be routinely conserved. There was a piece, I think, on chromosome 5 that I found. Now, what occurs to me is that this might be a way to find segments of DNA which are important to the survival of groups of people. I don't, the chromosome 6, the MHC is an obvious example because we're talking about the immune system, but there are other less obvious possibilities where you might have a mutation that would cause other types of problems. And obviously, if you have that problem, you might not be able to survive to adulthood. In any event, that I'm forwarding that information to you. It's a brief presentation, and I hope it opens some eyes and gets you interested.